This story starts in 1997. It was the first time I ever laid eyes on this guitar. This is the Blue Jazz Laureate built by Steve Grimes. It was one of only 22 blue archtop guitars built for the world-famous Chinery Collection that was exhibited at the Smithsonian and profiled in this book. For me, the guitars were simply impossible objects that existed on glossy pages. But the Grimes guitar, it captured my imagination and I thought about it a lot. This episode starts with us flying to Maui to visit Steve Grimes, the master luthier himself. I happened to be going to Maui for my 20th wedding anniversary, so, like a good husband, I convinced my wife that we should drive up a volcano to see Steve's workshop in Koryell, because every wife wants to do that on their anniversary trip. Steve was so kind to me. He gave me a shop tour, showed me some instruments in progress. I got to see the wood vault, including some amazing koa and some maple. Steve let me ask a handful of questions, and he showed me some of the faces that had been through his shop before. You know, Steve's a man of many talents. He plays and writes a lot of great music, so it was a real treat to see his studio, and I really enjoyed that he shared some life philosophies with me. I only wish we could have had a proper interview there on Maui, but it was the middle of the pandemic and we had our masks on. Instead, Steve and I decided to chat at the Rocky Mountain Archtop Festival.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, John.
Thanks for making time to chat.
My pleasure.
We met in Maui when I visited your shop on a volcano. And, by the way, when I was there, you laid some CDs on me. And I really enjoyed your writing and music. We're going to talk about guitar building and stuff, but
nice.
I just want to let you know before we got deep into this, that was really,
Thank you.
I enjoyed that. There's more to you than...
than working the hands in wood.
Anyway, I'm glad we've been able to keep in touch and connect here. We are at the Rocky Mountain Archtop Festival, of all places. For anyone out there who doesn't know, where have you been? But also, you're one of the preeminent archtop builders.
You should be here.
Yeah, you're one of the preeminent archtop builders in the world. You have been for a long time. This is sort of an interesting community. How does it feel to be here at a festival where some of your peers and the best players were all in one place at one time?
Well, it's pretty awesome. And this is my first, I've been at this for 50 years. It's my first Archtop Guitar Festival. Actually, I think there's only been one before this. And that was in 2019. I couldn't make it to that one, and then COVID hit. So this is the second festival dedicated to archtop guitars. So I had to do it. There was no question. But being here around so many of my old friends that I've known forever that do what I do, and we enjoy each other's company, and we like to talk shop and all that. That's really fun. It's great to see that we're being followed by another generation, another wave of exceptional talent. Mm-hmm. And so it's really exciting to see the younger builders and their ideas that are adding to the mix of tradition that I followed. I mean, I followed the people before me that influenced me, Jimmy DeAquisto, and the people before him. So it's just a natural progression, I think, but it's really cool to see it, that it exists, and to have conversations with these people, some of whom go, well, I want to emulate your work, and I've known of your work for a long time. And then I look down and I go, whoa, that's amazing. I would never have thought of that. I would never have thought of this. So it's really a lot of fun. And then there's the nighttime jam sessions.
Oh my God.
And last night went pretty late, and I feel sorry for the people in the hotel room below us because there was a lot of foot tapping.
Yeah. We were out in somewhere downtown Arvada, and just music player after player. We were at the Organ Jam with Bruce Foreman, I think, and his organ trio, and just guitar player after guitar player sat in and just wrecked the place.
What club was that?
I think it was the Winery.
Okay.
Silver something Winery. I'll have to look it up and figure it out. But just to see that many great players, one after another,
Yeah.
They're all feeding off each other. All the guitars are excellent.
Right. Yeah.
Like all the right people are in the mix for this. Yeah, it's been special. I guess one of the big attractions of this show is that the famed Blue Guitar Collection is reunited. It's going to be on public display, for the first time since the Smithsonian, I think, or maybe it was on display after that. I'm not sure. Publicly.
I think this is the first time I've seen it since the Smithsonian, but I think that it was at Rudy's in New York.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
For a while, and then Ty Danko got a hold of it, and so I think this is the first time. I'm disappointed that more of the Blue Luthiers, I'll call them the Blue Luthiers, are not here. There's only 3 of us. Bob Benedetto couldn't make it. I thought there was going to be 4, and Tom Rebecki couldn't make it. So at this show, there's only Bill Commons and Linda Manzer and myself.
Yeah. And I mean, of those 22, one of his course, one of your builds, and it's a beautiful guitar. I've seen pictures of it when the book came out a long time ago. Salivated after that, and but you had more to do with the Blue Guitar Project than just contributing the guitar. I mean, you were involved in some deeper ways, yeah?
Well, Scott, I had met Scott on Maui. He was at, he called me from Willie Nelson's house. I think it was maybe in the early 90s, mid 90s, and he had heard of my work, and he asked me to bring some guitars to him. And I don't usually do that. If someone's interested in my guitars, a good setting is in my shop. So he asked me if I could bring some guitars to show him, and then I do remember that he said he was at Willie Nelson's house, and I made a guitar for Willie. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I thought, I'll get to see Willie. He can't be any slouch if he's staying at Willie Nelson's house. So I took a couple of guitars down there, and he ordered one and a small body guitar, and when I finished it, I called him and I said, how do you want me to ship it? And he said, I actually would like you to bring it. Would you consider, if I paid your way, to bring it to my place in Lakewood, New Jersey, Toms River, New Jersey? And I have relatives and friends, and I thought, okay, yeah, I could get a trip back home. And so I did. I delivered the guitar. He loved the guitar, and that's when it had a portrait of his daughter on the peghead. I've never done portrait engraving in shell, but I got a crash course in it. And I found out that if you move the graver just a microscopic amount, it changes the expression. So this beautiful little 4-year-old girl, I think I did 4 redos of her face before I captured. From the photograph, I made it look like her. And when he saw that, he just got this idea for a family tree guitar, and he wanted portraits of his entire family. And I think when I finished that family tree guitar and delivered it to him, he was so taken by it. And just talking guitars, I got to go into his music room, measure the top thickness of all these old archtops, which was just invaluable for me. Spent a couple of days there, and he started talking about the Blue Guitar Project. And he said he had a list of names, and there was 15 names. And he said, look at the list and tell me. It was, all the more well-known makers. I was happy to be on it, but he said, is there anybody I should add? And I said, have you ever seen Kim Walker's guitars? Who's Kim Walker? And I told him about Kim Walker, and called Kim Walker. Kim was agreeable, so he got on the list, and I told him about Mark Lacey, and he didn't have Bill Collins. He said, when I mentioned Bill Collins, he says, he's a flat top guitar maker. I said, yes indeed, but have you ever played one of his archtops? They're exceptional. So he called Bill. Bill signed on to doing it, and he called Steve Anderson, and that somehow didn't work out. But so yeah, I guess I had some little bit of influence in who he added to the list. But Scott was a real He was one. I ended up making him 4 guitars, the blue guitar being the last. So, yeah, he was a patron. They all had 1 7/8 inch nuts, no matter how small bodied the guitar was. So they had that monster Chinery neck width, which makes it nowadays, since he's unfortunately long gone. Anybody that likes the guitars has to like wide necks. So, yeah. But he was a real good guy, and he loved my work.
And you're here. You're going to be. I think you were maybe already, or you're going to be reunited with your blue guitar.
I was yesterday for the first time.
It's like seeing a child you haven't seen in 25 years. What were you curious about after all this time?
Well, I just wanted to know that it was set up right. I had no doubts about the guitar's integrity. The neck would be in good shape. But I watched Ted Ludwig play it with Taylor. I'm not sure Taylor's last name. And they just were tearing it up on two guitars. They played great. So I first got to hear it. Before I had it in my hands, I got to hear the guitar, and it sounded really good. No pickup, as none of them have any pickups. But I just got to hear it acoustically, and it sounded good. And then when Ty put it in my hands, I think the first thing I said was, "Come to Daddy." Felt like, a child that was coming back home to visit after many, many years. And guitars do this over time. It had a voice that it never had when it was made. Hadn't developed yet when it was made. I had to part with it weeks after it had strings on it for the first time, and never played it again. And to hear it for the first time, 98, so 24 years since I had played it, and it just had this voice, and it was like hearing Lou Rawls sing. It just had that 18-inch big bottom, big guttural, authoritative voice to it, and I was very, very pleased. It was not set up right. The action was high. Somebody had put the bridge on, and it was moved over this way so that the bass string was closer to the edge of the fingerboard than the treble string. It just took a couple of minutes retuning, and it was all good. Lowered the bridge with the thumb screws, and got it dialed in while I was being interviewed. And so
action shot,
action Luther. Yeah.
That must have felt good. I know that when it was built, that was probably the high watermark of your craft at the time.
The whole collection, I think, for every one of the builders is probably that. We all just, I think, we put everything we had into it.
But then, it's been 5 years. How has your approach or building evolved in that time, or did you have it right in the beginning?
No. I think I realized very early on what makes a good guitar visually, but the way it plays and the way it sounds is something that evolves. And aesthetically, you're going to develop a style. Just because, whether you like it or not. It's just as I'm a songwriter also. And they come to me, I'm not even sure where from, but you realize that there's a continuity somewhere. Even though one might be a swing jazz tune, another one might have a slight reggae-ish feel, folk feel, there's something that ties them all together. And in the guitar world, I realized that I have a tone, and I have an aesthetic style, and that the aesthetic thing, anybody that's good with their hands and they see the standard, they can look at other guitars and see how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Tone-wise, it's a little bit more ethereal, and you have to voice some tops, and then you have to have tone memory. You have to, when the guitar's done and it's got strings on it, you have to hear that tone and know where to go from there and where you've been before. So to remember from one to the next that, yes, this is evolving. So when I looked at the blue guitar, it has a much higher bridge than I use anymore. I think the bridge is probably 1 1/8 inches tall. Maybe it looked like, I didn't measure it, maybe 1 1/4 inches, but probably more like 1 1/8 inches. That's a high bridge. And in '86, I did an experiment with an 18-inch archtop guitar, where I decided to make the bridge about 3/4 of an inch tall. And as such, it's regulated by the neck angle. So I made the neck angle lower. The bridge was lower. So, and the arch itself, instead of being up around 7/8 of an inch, I made it 5/8 of an inch. So it wasn't as high of an arch. So, and then I did an experiment before where I used a scale and a whole setup on my bench, where I was able to tune this imaginary guitar up to pitch with medium gauge strings and measure the downward pressure here that the strings push down on the top. And I found that with the 1 1/4 inch high bridge, there was 57 pounds of downward pressure on the top. So then I changed the equation a little bit so that the bridge was only 3/4 of an inch tall. Same strings tuned to pitch, the downward pressure was a little less than half. It was 26 pounds downward pressure. So then I thought, well, if it's got downward pressure, maybe I could lessen the part of the equation where the bracing and the thickness of the top, part of their function is to not cave in over the years. So it's the strength part of it, but also it changed the tone drastically. So I was able to, well, I'll back up a little bit. I decided I didn't need as thick a top, and I didn't need as tall of a brace. So I lessened both of those, what I felt would be sufficient. And I had lower arch, thinner top, lighter bracing, and the thing just had this enormous voice. And the strength ratio was pretty much the same. So I liked it a lot. I did a couple more, and then I think it was '86, I did a talk at the Guild of American Luthiers convention in Tacoma about what I called the lower stress archtop. And it's not the be all end all. It's just a different tone. It's a different option. So when a customer calls me, a potential customer, and we talk tone, I ask him what he's looking for. If he's looking for a really cutting tone that's got a lot of mid, really cutting high end, then you want a taller bridge. But to have a balance and have a warmer, richer bass response, the lower arch, lower neck angle, lower bridge combination works extremely well. So that evolved over time. So I have been, just advancing that part of the archtop guitar tone option for since '86. Yeah, as an option to what. See, before the archtops had pickups, before there were pickups, they were rhythm instruments. They had to compete with piano, horns, drums in these orchestras. You needed something that cut through. You needed that 1 1/4 inch tall bridge with a higher arch, and you need to keep your body off of the back so that the back has, it's free to vibrate, because you were going for maximum volume. And today you have pickups, you have in studios, you have excellent microphones. You don't need that tone. You don't need that volume. Volume isn't the only criteria that you want to pay attention to. Quality of sound can be, could be the end result.
Much more flexibility to think about quality of sound.
Quality of sound. Yeah. So where there's a better balance between treble and bass.
That's interesting, and that just took time and experimentation.
The experiment I think paid off, and I don't say it's better. It's just different. Instead of just having a basket full of oranges, you now have a basket full of apples and oranges.
Yeah. And so, am I correct that this is a
little bit of an oddball archtop. I have been experimenting. I made my 40th anniversary archtop 10 years ago. And that was my first asymmetrical archtop. And it was just to do something different. I didn't really anticipate any difference in tone, and I'm not even 100% sure that the asymmetry of the body has too much of an effect on the tone. Every guitar is so different to actually say the sound of this is due to the fact that it's an asymmetrical body is kind of, a little BS as far as I'm concerned. But so I went with this shape, this asymmetrical shape. This is a 16-inch wide body. And this is a model. It's my 50th anniversary. Been doing it since '72, and I decided to call it the Heartstrings. And just as a checkup, I had an EKG earlier this year. Turned out pretty good, but the doctor showed me this readout, and I said, "What do you call that line?" And he goes, "Well, we have a nickname for it. It's called the rhythm line." And I said, "I like it." And that's when I got the idea to do the EKG, the rhythm line now. And a couple people I've shown this to, and you can't play lead on this guitar because it's just a rhythm line guitar. I said, no, that's just the name. But I call it the Heartstrings, and I have a little ruby, it's reconstituted ruby stone heart up at the top, and then my EKG down the fingerboard.
That's your EKG?
Well, it's just an idea that I took from it.
What happened at the 12th fret? Something really excited you at the 12th fret?
I got really excited at the 12th fret.
I'm almost there.
I think I had a irregular heartbeat. And went, whoa, what was that?
50 years, you've invested a lifetime in the guitar.
I have. I went through school in engineering, and I got out of college, and I moved to the West Coast, and I got a job at Boeing up in Seattle as a draftsman for an engineer. And I just pictured myself working my way up into the engineering echelon. And after a year, I knew that it wasn't for me. And it was '71, and someone had asked me to fix an old Martin mandolin, flat top mandolin, the bevel top mandolin, and the back had come off, and so I had a chance to look around the inside, and I thought, I was a player. I played fiddle, mandolin, guitar, and so I thought, let's do this. Let's make one of these. So I copied all the specs from this Martin mandolin, and numero uno was a mandolin. And when it was done, I knew that I was a musician. I loved to work with my hands. Here was this thing I could actually make and play, and I was smitten. And I called my mom in Baltimore, and I said, "Mom, I quit my job at Boeing." "You what? You what?" And I said, "Yeah, I quit my job at Boeing. I've just fallen in love with building instruments, and I'm going to build mandolins." My mom said, "You're going to throw your education away? And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to stand on the street corner selling medallions?" I said, "Mom, no. Mandolins, Mom, not medallions." "Oh, whatever." She thought that I was throwing my life away.
I don't think you did.
I don't think so. I might have thrown my life away if I was still, working in a room with 300 other people. But anyway, no, I've loved it from day one. And they say if you can blur the line between work and play, that's a pretty high accomplishment. And so, yeah, I work a lot. My wife says, "You work a lot of hours a week," and I go, "No, I play a lot of hours every week." So it is amazing. 50 years and still can't wait to get in the shop in the morning. So
with all that perspective, is there one lesson that pops in your mind that the guitar has taught you?
That building the guitars has taught me?
Just the guitar in general, building them, playing them, holding them, loving them.
Well, I guess that if you, like I said, if you can combine work and play, and I've been very fortunate that way because a lot of people can't wait for the 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock bell, or so they can get on with the real part of their lives. And for me, one of the real parts of my life, besides my wife, is my life in the shop. And I spend a lot of time. I don't do as much guitar building as I used to, because about 20 years ago I picked up songwriting again. I was a songwriter in the 70s, and I kind of gave that up. Got too busy. I had 4-year backlog on my instruments, and so I've gotten back into songwriting, and I've got 3 albums of music out, of original music and songs, and I have almost 30, I think 28, 29 new songs that haven't been released yet. So I sit down and I can burn through hours at a time and not even know that time is passing. With some, I don't know, I'm not a woo-woo kind of person, but something happens and something comes through me, and when it's done, I just go, who did that? I'm just, don't kill me, I'm just the messenger. Because it just amazes me sometimes, the lyrics, the music, matching the two and having it turn into a song. It's a real thrill for me. So I'm not going to release any more 12, 13, 14 song CDs. I'm going to release EPs, 5 or 6 songs. Mm-hmm. And so I have 4 of those that I'll be releasing in the next couple of years. No, actually in the next year, because it's almost all done. So anyway, playing the guitar and making the guitar. First of all, I think if you're a player, you make a better guitar. I think it's just natural to know what it's supposed to feel like. And talking to players and jamming with players, I'm not here to drop names, but I had the good fortune of having George Benson come to my shop almost every Friday when he lived on Maui. It was one of his favorite things to do. It's just drive the 45 miles from his house to my place, and he would sit there and just play whatever guitars I had sitting around. And I'd say he wasn't good at explaining what he was doing, but he intuitively, he'd play all this. Well, he's one of the best players that ever walked the planet, but I would just try to pick up little things from him, and he was really free with his ideas. So just to have that opportunity to, and not only him, but some of the other great players that all of us luthiers have had, the privilege of having these people come into your shop, play their instruments, and go, this is the cat's meow, and this is what I want.
Yeah, and I was talking with a friend somewhere in a lobby somewhere, and he said that there's a sort of feedback that you need from those great players to push the art.
Absolutely. What they want to hear, how they want it to feel, you learn a lot. Absolutely.
So with all this, wisdom on the topic, are there things that you feel like? Well, you said, let me rephrase that. You are going to continue to write and play music. Do you feel like there's things with all this wisdom that you have now that you think you still need to do to push the guitar forward, or to push your writing forward?
Oh, definitely on the writing end, because I'm still learning. Of course, I'm still learning here too. I don't know how many years ago it was, but I tried an experiment. I did an experiment with the pressure on the top. Something amazingly different and better, or different. Let's just say different, because it's a different tone, evolved out of that. And it wasn't in a book I read. It wasn't in another guitar I played. I just thought, why do we need this tall of a bridge? Besides pushing down on top, the strings are so far off the top, it just has a different feel. And bringing it closer to the top, it just is more ergonomic. I don't know what the word would be. It just feels better to play. It's not all jacked way up and stiffer feeling. So there's a lot left to learn, and there's new people coming along that teach us geezers.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were excited to see some of the things that are out there. What are the new? I don't know if trend is the word. That doesn't sound like the right word. What are the new design elements that you're seeing that have you excited now?
Ken Parker. I wasn't going to name any names, but he just has his own ideas and he develops them, and it's definitely an apple and an orange. He's a peach. He's a peach. He's so far different than anybody else, but it's exciting. And there's youngsters like Tyler Wells and Megan Wells. There are a couple of the next generation archtop builders that are here. There's a guy I met yesterday named Fernando, and he's got an entirely different concept for the bridge.
Oh yeah, the guy from Spain.
From Spain?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't had time to go over to his table and actually look closely. It looks like he's got individual intonation, movable intonation saddles for each string. But it's exciting. And if anybody gets rigid and goes, oh, that's not the way it's supposed to be, I know how it's supposed to be, it's been this way for a long time, it shouldn't change, that's just not the attitude to take, because that's how things evolve and they get better. So the archtop guitar, might have been invented 120 years ago, but it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's still in the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's people out there that are going to already know all about you, and then some people that I hope will learn more about you because they found this somehow. What is the best place for people to get information about you moving forward? Your website? Where do you?
My website, actually the best way is to get a ticket to Maui. Come and enjoy Maui and come to the shop. No, it's really great.
I've done that.
Yeah, you have. The website's great. I just had it revamped by my web designer. There's a lot of information on there. There's sound bites on YouTube. YouTube is an incredible tool these days. But still the best is to be able to sit down with the builder, hear 4 or 5 different kinds of guitars, the difference between, this is a maple and spruce, as most of them are, but I've had the opportunity to work with Koa. I have a lot of it, and it's beautiful curl, and it's a different tone. It's a slightly more complex tone than maple. Maple is pure and fundamental. Like a set of strings that's been on your guitar for a month. And Koa has more high frequency going on. It's a little bit brighter. It's like a brand new set of strings, which maybe a lot of jazz people are not looking for, but it's got character. It's like the subtle differences in voice. Like if you were to hum a C note and I were to hum the same note, people would be able to see the difference between your C note, your middle C and my middle C, and it's all those little overtones that make your voice sound different from mine, and each guitar has those differences. And each wood, like if you were to make mahogany sides and back, it's going to sound totally different than maple. Koa has its little signature tone, and it's beautiful. It's light, it's complex, and it has good sustain, works very well with spruce. It makes a great archtop. I have 2 Koa sides and back archtops here and 2 maple sides and back.
Well, thank you for your openness and pushing the art form forward. Thanks for your voice and spending some time with me here today.
It's been a pleasure.
I've really just enjoyed chatting with you, and I hope we can continue to keep in touch.
Thank you, John. Yeah, it's great to meet you too.
Yeah, I want to come back to the island and
you should
spend some more time. It's a wonderful place.
Definitely come over, get a hold of me, and good to see you over there.
Most of my travel takes place in a 1987 camper van. So I took a plane here.
I've heard they're going to build a bridge.
Yeah, it's a big bridge. All right, well, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.